Welcome to another video that I will try to explore some of my pigments or watercolors that I have. I'm trying to make this an ongoing series, but we'll see if I can keep up with it, or we would kind of get discouraged halfway. I have a lot of watercolor I accumulated, like most people, I guess, that get into this hobby. I have them all in this binder, and I try to arrange them somehow into kind of rainbow order. And I'm sorry about the glare. These page protectors, I think they're coin organizers, but I made these little swatches, and my first one, and probably my favorite, is this Purpurite Genuine. It's a Daniel Smith watercolor. You probably are familiar with it. You've seen swatches. I'll try to bring it close to the camera. So it's a granulating kind of desaturated purple. Daniel Smith says it's an intensely lavender violet. It's a series 2 light fastness 1. It's granulating, semi-transparent, low staining. And before I try to paint with it, I use it so far in paintings, but not very intensely. I'm trying to do some studies to know exactly what this watercolor is capable. I'm going to look at the value, how fast it moves in water, how easy it lifts, how it layers, the gradient, and the opacity. And I'm going to fast forward you to this part, but hope you find this interesting. Thank you. So I'm actually glad I started this project, because I was trying to squeeze some of this beautiful color to swatch out, and I realized my tube was defective. I don't know if you can see that. It had a weak spot, and as soon as I started squeezing, I noticed the paint was harder than I remember it, and then it just started to crack, and now I have paint coming out of this little hole. But I'll try to fix it, maybe roll this up, get as much paint out as I can. But yeah, always inspect your tube, use your paints, pour them in pans if you want. They'll be sure they're not gonna harden in the tube. So this is the Purpurite Genuine. I kind of use it to create this study to check about value, movement, lift, layers, gradient, and opacity. And as you can see, I have this little pocket color wheel, and this is the thickest and the strongest I could get the paint out. If I put it together, I would say somewhere between value 3, maybe even 4, just because only in very concentrated areas you can get it really dark. And I would never use it that dark, and you'll see why. Because of the granulation, nature of this paint, it's very hard to layer, so it's hard to create deeper and darker values with this color. Also with this gradient, I just left it like that. I didn't try to do more, because the beauty of this paint is the separation of pigment. And you can see, let me try to bring it closer to the camera. You can see the violet and a little bit of dark specks in there that make this paint special and a little difficult to work with, especially if you want to use it as a traditional layering. And I didn't do any lifting. Let me try and do that. I'm gonna use this flat brush, slightly damp. It should be a low staining color, so we'll see what happens. Try to scrub it off. So on this paper, which is not the best paper for watercolor, it's one of those Canson sketchbook. It says watercolor paper, but yeah, it's not the best. But just to get an idea of what this pigment, this paint is able to do. I was surprised about movement. I expected to be more inert, but I got this really nice halo. And yeah, I'm not gonna layer with it. And I think the best use for it is to paint wet in wet, and then let the paint do whatever it wants. For that, I would expect a value no more than maybe 8. So very light value, maybe 7, 6, somewhere in the medium range. But let's put this paint to the test and try to paint something with it. And here's the finished painting using mostly the Purpurite Genuine from Daniel Smith. I also use Schminke Haze Pink and a little bit of Sennelier neutral tint. This is one of my favorite neutral tints. It has a slightly bluish purplish hue. As you can see, the color, it's hard to get very dark areas. Even this one where I put very concentrated paint looks very dull, but for the subject I think it works. Also, I don't know if this paint is really necessary. I'm thinking if you have cobalt violet, permanent mauve, and a lunar black, you might be able to get something similar. But regardless, straight from the tube, this paint, it's really something I find very pleasing. Thank you for following, and if there's one thing we learned from this video is use your supplies, because they expire or they get damaged and they get wasted. So go ahead and paint, use your favorite supplies.